Hello everyone, welcome to the SolidWorks Steel Bridge tutorial. I'm Miles Barber. I graduated in 2018. I was captain of Steel Bridge in 2017 and 2018. The reason I'm making this is mostly because the 2018 bridge was the most intricate, detailed bridge that we've ever designed, and I had to learn SolidWorks from scratch in order to make the model. So I figured this video should hopefully help any future bridge designers so you don't have to learn from level 0. So let's get started. You may be wondering why I have AutoCAD open and not SolidWorks, and that's because I prefer to actually draw out the dimensions of my pieces, kind of like a layout of how the bridge is, and get all of the dimensions in AutoCAD before I make them in SolidWorks. I think that ultimately saves a little bit of time because in SolidWorks it's a little bit harder to adjust things because you're continuously loading new dimensions into your assembled model. And we'll see that a little bit in more detail later on. So this drawing that I've made here in AutoCAD is basically a 2D version of what we're going to be making today. Worth noting that even though this isn't an AutoCAD tutorial, when you are sketching in AutoCAD, I typically don't mess with any of the units, so I just keep it as default. So, you know, one unit in this default I have is 1 inch, and so the bridge gets really long. If it's like 20 feet, that's 240 inches, and if you try to draw that in AutoCAD, sometimes you run out of space and you can't zoom out any further. So the easiest way to zoom out further is just to type in regen, R-E-G-E-N, then enter, and then you can zoom out even further than before. And you can do that as much as you need. So this here is just a really simple kind of bridge. It kind of looks like the 2017 bridge, and I figured that I didn't need to design a 20-foot long bridge because it's basically just a repeat of these pieces, and so this would be the easiest way. So I've drawn this to show you kind of what it's supposed to look like at the end of the day. You can see here we've got these little T-slot connections, and here we've got like a bolted kind of connection. And I took all of this and I made each of the individual pieces up here, and I even added in some dimensions so you see what each of the pieces looks like. The way SolidWorks works is you make a part first that's just one piece, and then you assemble parts together to make like a bridge member. So we're going to do that by starting with just let's just start with this part right here. So this as it says, is 34 inches long and it's 1 inch deep. As this is in 2D, it's a little bit hard to figure out exactly what the dimensions are because I haven't written them down or anything like that, but let's just assume this tube is 1 by 1, and if it's a tube it has a thickness, so let's say 0.1 thickness, and then it's 34 inches long. So let's get right into SolidWorks. I use SolidWorks 2018 on this computer. I don't know if there's a whole lot of difference between this version and whatever version is the latest when you guys watch this. I used 2016 last year as SolidWorks, and I found that it made almost no difference at all. So as soon as you see this, you'll notice that if you want to make a new piece, you have to choose between a part, an assembly, and a drawing. We're always going to click, I want to say we're always going to click part. Just from starting off, and you can see here some other things that I did in SolidWorks before. When you do open up a piece, when you save it, just make sure that all of the pieces are saved in the same folder, because assemblies refer to other parts. They refer to parts to actually put everything together, and so if it can't find the part, it just won't load it. So sometimes, if you screw up and you put your pieces in other folders, the assembly will give you an error, and the assembly will have like holes in it basically for parts that are missing. So let's start with this part. Just click part, and basically shows up a little blank screen. You've got a couple ribbons over here There's features, there's sketch, and there's evaluate. I've never used either dim, expert, or SolidWorks add-ins ever, so I wouldn't worry about those two. But when we start, we have to start by sketching something. So we always start in the sketch tab. So as I said, this member is 1 by 1 by 34, right? So let's just sketch. You basically can pick any of these different things to sketch. It's a rectangular member. It's actually square, so we'll just click the rectangle. And immediately it asks you to pick a plane. And the thing about SolidWorks is you always have to draw in a plane. So get used to that. So I'm just going to draw this. I'm just going to select this little front plane here. And I'm basically just going to draw. I click and drag, and then that's it. So now I have basically like a solid plate. And basically I click escape just so that I'm out of the draw function, and then I click each of these to adjust the size. So you can see kind of here in the left middle there are these parameters, so you can adjust the length. So if I click 1 for each of these, then that should do it. And because they're all kind of oriented with 90-degree angles, I just have to click these two as 1, and then these two should also be 1. So that's it for this. And as soon as you're done, come here in like the top right corner. You have to basically, this will load it into your drawing as if you finished your sketch. So we'll click that, and boom, we've got a sketch. So I deselected just to make sure that it's correct and I'm not doing anything incorrectly. And so now I basically have to turn this little sketch into a solid piece. So by the way that I do that is I click it, and I go over to features, and I do extruded boss / base. So you click that and it'll basically extrude it. You can do this if you want. You can do it either direction, or you can just type in your dimension. So I like to type in the dimension. I know this is going to be 34 inches. So boom, 34 inches. And there you go. That's my solid piece. And then I basically click this little check mark, and then I'm in. So now I have a solid piece. But remember, I have a tube, right? That's what I actually have. If we jump back to AutoCAD here, you know, I've got the right dimensions, but if I want to actually detail this the way it's going to be, I want to make it a tube. So the way that I do that is I have to make a hole in here that, gets rid of the interior. So I go back to sketch and I click another rectangle, and I use this as my plane right here. And so I do the exact same thing. I do my little drag, and then that's it. And so I've drawn this thing. Now, the way that I like to, make sure that this is in the right orientation, I just hit escape to make sure I wasn't selecting anything, is to use this smart dimension. You can only use smart dimension while you're in sketch mode. So don't try to get out of the sketch and then try to dimension it later. Don't do that. Do it while you're sketching. So smart dimension I hit, and then I basically dimension between here. Now I know that I have 0.1 thickness, right? So I'm just going to type in 0.1, and I'm going to do that for all 4 sides. 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1. So that should be it for that sketch. I get out of the sketch. I know this thing is centered. If you ever need to make sure that it's centered, you can always go over to the Evaluate tab here and just measure. So I'll measure from here to here, and I'll see that it's measuring in millimeters, unfortunately. So go over here to Units Precision, and you can set this to inches, and that should fix that. And now it's showing inches, and you have to kind of zoom in here to see which dimension is actually being measured. And it looks like I'm not actually measuring to the right thing. So let me get out of this really quick, and let me try to measure again. I'm going to measure from here. There you go. So now you can see that this vertical dimension is the distance between this wall, the interior wall, and the exterior wall, and that's 0.1. So I know I'm good. So escape from there. It's not a sketch, so you don't have to click anything on the top right corner, nothing like that. Just escape will do. And now let's use this sketch that we made to cut out the inside. So let's go back over to features. Click the sketch, any bit of it. You don't have to click all of them. The whole sketch is kind of combined together. So if you click one bit, you can't. It selects the entire sketch. If you want to make separate lines, you have to do them in separate sketches, which is kind of annoying. but typically this is okay. So you click the sketch and then you do extruded cut, and immediately it will default the length of the extruded cut to the length of the extruded boss base that you just did to make your member, which is great. It means you don't have to type in the length. And so basically it's already at 34 inches, which is exactly what we want. And so we just click check and boom, we've got a tube that's 34 inches long. It's 1 by 1 by 0.1. And if you really want to make sure that you actually got it and that you can, this cut actually goes all the way through, you can always rotate by holding down on your mouse the little rotate key, and then there you go. So it goes all the way through, and that's what we got. So yeah, looking at the piece right now, it seems like it's really short. So just remember that when you rotate things around, you start to really see how long everything is. So don't be too fooled by the visuals of SolidWorks. So let's save this piece now. I'm going to save it in this folder that I made for this tutorial called SolidWorks Tutorial Bridge. And I like to save my files with the dimensions of the piece, because I find that I use repeat pieces often. And so it's really easy to find. I don't have to keep opening pieces hoping that one's the right one, and I don't have to keep making a new piece. I can just use the same one. So this is 1 by 1 by 0.1 by 34. So there you go. So now I know this is a square tube with the exterior dimensions 1 by 1, 0.1 thickness, and 34 inches long. And that's it. That's the first piece. Okay, so now that we've made this piece, let's jump back to AutoCAD and take a look at the other pieces that we're going to have to make. So this piece was 1 by 1 by 34, and it was square, no angles or anything like that. So let's move on to a piece that's pretty similar. This piece right here, this piece is 0.75. We're just going to make all the pieces square. So this is going to be 0.75 by 0.75, and it's 4 inches long. So let's make this piece. So let's go back to SolidWorks, go to File, New. You'll come to a similar menu, click Part. It's already highlighted, and then OK. And now we're in a brand new part. So the exact same thing as before. Sketch, pick your rectangle, pick a plane, sketch it out. Escape. 0.75 is the dimensions. 0.75. Escape. And load it in. Great, so now you can select it, go to features, extrude boss base is 4 inches long, just like that. And we're going to cut a hole in the middle. Let's just give it the same thickness as everything else. So back to sketch, pick your plane. If the thickness is 0.1, we're just going to make it 0.1. It'll show up as much bigger than the other piece because this guy has an exterior wall that's only 0.75, so 0.1 is a higher proportion of 0.75 than it is of 1 inch. So there you go. So we just finished it. Everything's deselected, and we should be good. So let's load it in, and then it's still highlighted. So let's go back to features and let's do extruded cut. And there you go. We did it in like 30 seconds. It's that easy to make these rectangular pieces. So let's save this. This is 0.75 by 0.75 by 0.1 by 4. So there you go. So that's this piece. So that was easy. Now let's get into something a little bit harder. So we go back into SolidWorks, we see that we have these pieces, right? So this guy is, you don't really know how long it is. You can dimension it, but you'll probably, 17.09 something. You don't want to do it that way because you won't get the piece exactly right. The way that you do want to do it is you want to basically draw this line, this piece, this line, either of this or this, and then draw a rectangle, perpendicular to this, and basically extrude it along this line. And the easiest way to do this is, instead of measuring this line like this, is you can instead just measure these dimensions, these outer dimensions, This is 16.625, and this is 4. So what we can do instead is we can sketch this line and this line, and then we can draw a line from the ends of this sketch, and we know we'll get the dimensions exactly right because it'll be the same as AutoCAD. So let's dimension this really quick because I don't think I'm actually going to remember it. From the edge here to here, 16.625, and we know 4 inches. So let's go back into SolidWorks. You'll see, by the way, that SolidWorks now has both of these open. You can click in either one, it doesn't really matter. In fact, if you really want, you can find the other ones by basically minimizing this, and you can see that there's the other one behind it. Sometimes I find this is the easiest way to, jump in between pieces, but I like to work with the whole thing maxed. So yeah, so let's make a new part. So yeah, just like I said, right, this is going to be an interesting part because it's angled, and I find that the angled parts are the most difficult. So instead of starting with a rectangle, I'm actually going to start with just a line. So let's pick our plane here. Let's just use this plane for now. So we're going to start from the center here, and we're going to go out. Let's go out 4 inches because that's the dimension that I remember. Let's see. So you see there's like that yellow, minus sign. That means that we're going at the, we're snapped to an easy angle, like 180 degrees. If you start going up, that thing disappears. So that's how you know that you're snapped. So let's just click, right? So you see I continue drawing as if it's a polyline. So I'm going to escape from that. And then I'm going to click this, and I'm going to make sure that it's the right dimension, same way that we've done before. So I'm going to click 4 inches, and that's great. And now I'm going to draw another line that's going to be up the other dimension. Now I don't exactly remember what that dimension is, so really quick I'm going to jump back to AutoCAD. All right, 16.625, 16 5/8, and let's draw that. So yeah, so you just have to draw it and then escape and then adjust the dimension later. So 16.625, and that right there should be our dimension. So basically now we can complete this right here. And there you go. See that dimension, 17.099? That's pretty much, that better be exactly the same as the one that we saw in AutoCAD. And now we know that we got it exactly because we're using the same dimensions that allow us to actually make this line. So there you go. I'm going to make it just like that. Now you see that it basically made this this solid region, right? That's okay. That's okay because we're not actually going to end up using the solid region. We're not going to extrude it or anything. We're just going to use this as kind of like our metrics to figure out exactly where we're going to sketch things. So, all right. Now, I know that I'm going to need to form a rectangle that's basically in this line here. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a plane. I'm going to make a new plane because I have those 3 planes that I can choose from, but none of those are going to be parallel to this. So I'm going to make a plane that is parallel to this. And the way that you do that is you can make a plane, a bunch of different ways you guys learn. But the easiest way for me is to choose 2 lines and make sure that both lines are in the plane. And as long as the lines aren't collinear, then you've got a plane. So this line right here would be great. But if I choose these 2 lines, I'm basically just going to get the same plane that I just sketched in, right? So let me instead make a new sketch, make my extra line. So it's asking me to sketch in a plane, right? Now I don't have a plane here, but I can set one by doing this, or let's see, I believe this is gonna, nope, not even that, I don't know. So let's see, how do I choose a plane? This will do it. Yeah, there we go. So this dimension underneath the little eyeball here. So right, so I'm in sketch mode and I'm going to choose this bottom plane here because I want to draw a line that's like this so that I can draw this line and the line that I'm going to draw, which is going to be perpendicular to this line. That's the right plane. So I'm going to click sketch, and I click this plane, right? And then there we go. So, look for that little minus sign. Now it's vertical, so throws off my whole analogy. But you know what you're looking for now. It doesn't matter how long this is because it's going to define that plane. So now we're out of sketch mode. We just made that sketch. That's great. Now click this plane right here. And it automatically just puts it somewhere. You can choose where it's going to include, and by clicking the two lines, and boom, you've got your plane. So if you want to make sure that this is the right one, yeah, you can see that this is encapsulating those two lines. And so there you go, you made a plane. So as you can see, you have to first finish your sketch, and then you got to load it back in. So now you've got this plane right here. By the way, if you'll see that, we haven't even drawn anything that resembles our piece yet, and yet it's already really cluttered. So if you want to go over here and hide some stuff, you can just, right click this, and this little eyeball thing with the slash through it means it's going to get hidden. So there you go. You can always do that with anything, even extrusions and cuts and things like that you can do. So I'm going to bring this back just so that I make sure that I have everything that I need. And yeah, so basically this plane that I just created is the plane that contains these two. So I can basically take this line and, I can draw in this plane and extend this line if I want in either direction. Another thing that I'm going to need is I'm going to need to draw a rectangle in, I'm going to need to draw a rectangle that is actually perfectly perpendicular to this plane. And I think the way that I'm going to go about doing that is I'm first going to sketch a line that's perpendicular to this line. And so as you can see, it's already getting a little frantic here. So you can see it's not easy for me to choose, to get it perpendicular, but nicely I can do smart dimension, and I can angularly make it so that it's 90 degrees with this line up here, and that'll do the trick for me. So I'm going to draw this, and then I'm going to go into smart dimension, and I'm going to do this little tab here. I'm actually not going to do this little tab. I'm just going to do smart dimension, and I'm going to do, let's make sure this clicked. So this and this. If you click both lines, it'll automatically do the angle, and then it'll basically give the same thing. So I'm going to do 90 degrees, and boom, just like that. So now that I have this line, I know that this line and this line together will make the plane that I want. So let's hide that first plane that I made, just so that it's out of the way, and then I'll make a plane out of these two. So let's click the plane tab, and then we'll click these two lines, and boom, we got a plane. So load it back in, and there you go. This is the plane that we want. So now all we have to do is, draw our rectangle, and we know that it's along this line, and that's exactly what we want. Now you might be asking, all right, well, you could draw a rectangle and extrude it here and everything, and how do you know that it's actually going to be the right length? The way that we're going to do that, and the way that we're actually going to get these little angled ends, if we go back to AutoCAD, you see this is at like a little angle. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to basically take this piece up here, and we're going to use this to cut through. So if you do an extruded cut, like you saw before, it works both ways. It can cut in the middle of a piece, but you can also use it to cut along the outside of a piece. So we'll see that in a little bit. So let's go over to this. This unnamed one is the one that we're looking for. And yeah, so let's draw a rectangle in this plane. You can see it might be a little difficult to see where you're actually drawing. You can just kind of rotate it around if you're really confused. But it will draw basically perpendicular to the XY axis, the XYZ coordinates and things like that. If you want to actually draw something that's a little bit, rotated, that's a little bit more complicated. All right, so the dimensions of this piece are, well, let's see here. I believe this is 0.5. Yeah, that's not the right. Let's see. We got to do aligned here. I believe this is supposed to be 0.5. Yes, 0.5. So it's half an inch thick. Let's just assume that it's a square, just like everything else, and with the exact same exterior dimensions. So here I'm still in sketch mode, so I'm going to click this, and I'm going to do 0.5. And here I'm going to do 0.5. And there you go. So that's my piece. And then I just X out of this. And now I got this rectangle here. And if I want to extrude it, I know that it's going to get extruded along this line because I know that this plane is perpendicular to this line. Like this line is like the normal to this plane. So yeah, let's do that. So you can basically see that half of this is below. Actually, I think the whole thing, not the whole, almost the whole thing is below this plane right here. This is going to be important in a little bit. But let's take this and let's extrude it. Not evaluate, features, and let's just do extruded boss base. And you can extrude it this length, but the truth is you don't know this length. What you really want to do is you really want to extrude it exactly the right distance. And the way that you're going to actually be able to do that is by extending it past this and then using the things that I talked about before to cut this. And I'm realizing now that actually I want to make sure that the top of this rectangle aligns with this. So I'm actually going to get out of this extrusion really quick. And I'm going to go back to AutoCAD to explain what I mean. So let's go over to AutoCAD to explain what I mean. So as you can see, the dimensions that we used to actually measure our piece, we've used basically the dimensions that lay out this line right here, which means that we have to make sure that our rectangle that we're going to be using to extrude to make this piece has to basically be aligned right here. So it has to, it has to be perpendicular here and then extruded in order to achieve this. If you have it anywhere else, you're basically not following these dimensions, or this dimension here and this dimension here. So let's go back and fix that up. So the way that we're going to fix that up is, let's just take a look at our sketch again, this sketch right here. I basically want to edit this sketch. I can move things around. It won't exactly let me move things around when it's not, when I'm not in sketch mode. So the way that I can take this sketch and edit it is basically by going into this area here, and then this little thing with the pencil here is edit sketch. So yeah, so let's go into here, and let's just make sure that we're looking at this correctly. So we know that this line right here is the one that we're going to need to make sure that we're aligned with. And let's just zoom out really quick. Right, so if this line and this line right here are the two that we used, then this right here is the top of the piece, and this has to be basically below this. And not below, but more, this right here has to be touching this. So let's make that happen. So now we can move things around. So I can take this point, for example, and I can align it right here. Or I can keep this in this plane right here. This is probably what I want to do. Right like that. And now that I'm here, now I can adjust this stuff. This is 0.5. And this right here is 0.5. Let's just make sure that this, yeah, so see how it went in the wrong direction? The way that you can do that is by assigning some like little restraints. So if I actually do this and merge this with this point right here, now that this little thing up here, this means that this is coincidence, so this point has to stay here. So if I go to this line and I make this 0.5, and I go to this line also and make it 0.5, now it extends in the opposite direction, so we're good. Yeah, so that should do it right there. So let's load it back in, and then we'll basically take this and we'll extrude it. Now we can see this thing is entirely on the opposite side of this plane. For example, what I mean is that this piece, no part of this sketch right here extends past this plane, which is going to be useful, because it means that if we sketch something that runs along this plane, it'll basically chop the entirety of this piece. So this right here we use to make the plane. We can take this and hide it. We can hide almost everything here. The only thing I don't want to hide is this right here, and these two dimensions. So let's take this and let's extrude it. So it's automatically going to extrude perpendicular to itself. This is one of those instances where you can actually drag it instead of typing in the dimension, because you know that you're going to have to chop it eventually. And you'll see here, you want to hide it, you want to extrude it beyond the actual line, because we know that we're going to have something up here that's chopping this. And if we extrude it just towards the end of this line and we chop this, we're going to have this little region here that's not going to be fully, it's not going to match what we are actually looking for. So let's extend it such that the entire thing, you can extend it honestly like really far, and you can extend it really far in this direction too, and that'll do it. Now you know for sure you're way longer than you need to be. And all right, so we're good with the extrusion right there. All right, so let's make these little angled bits at the end. So you can see here we've got these little angled bits here and here. And the way that we're going to make those is pretty simple. We're going to go into this plane right here, and we're going to make a rectangle that's pretty huge, and we're basically going to use that rectangle to chop this. And then the only thing that's going to be left is this part up here, and it's going to basically, this region is going to be parallel to this plane, the same way that in AutoCAD this region is parallel to this plane right here. Hopefully that what I'm trying to say is coming through. But when we make it, you'll see. So let's do that. So let's go back to Sketch and let's make a rectangle in this plane right here. I'm going to start it. Let's just go into this plane, and I'll start it like so. You see how I'm dragging here, and it's still perpendicular because you can see that little white, the little minus sign like we were talking about before. So let's do this. Let's make this thing huge, way bigger than the piece itself, and that's great right there. And yeah, so we're basically going to use this, and we're going to extrude this way in an extruded cut, and we're going to chop this, and it's gonna look great. So basically, let's get out of sketch mode, and now we're going to click this, and we're basically going to go back to features, extruded cut. As you can see, it's cutting in the opposite direction, which is not what we want. You basically just take this and drag, and boom, we chop right through this thing. And as soon as we click OK, boom, we got the piece exactly like we want. All right, as soon as you start looking at it like this, you're like, oh, that actually looks exactly like what we want. And this line up here, this line right here is the top of the piece, right? This aligns with this. And so we know that, we got it right. Because this is going to match exactly with the other, with what we drew in AutoCAD. So we're going to use we're going to do the exact same thing for this below, and so we're going to have to draw in this plane now. So let's do that. Let's go back to Sketch and click the sketch, the rectangle. Click this plane. We're going to be parallel to this. Draw a giant rectangle, and get out of the sketch, and then basically take this and use it to make an extruded cut. And as you can see, it's going in the wrong direction again, but that's okay. So we basically go right through here, and boom, and look at that. That looks pretty much exactly like what we want. So the only things that we just have to do now is we just have to hide all this other stuff. So let's go to all of our sketches that we did. Don't delete them, by the way. If you do delete them, it'll remove anything that they were used for. So if you delete this plane, for example, you might lose all of the things that you use that plane for. So yeah, let's go through and hide everything. Yeah, so that's it. There's no more everything's hidden now. The only things you can actually see are those three planes, which we can turn off, and boom, we got our piece, right like that. Yeah, so that's great. This piece is great. So now the question is, what are we going to call this thing, right? So when we save it, right, I'm just going to call it 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.1 diagonal. And you can call it like diagonal 1, or you can call it, diagonal 17.09 or something like that, just, enough so that you understand what the piece actually is. And so, yeah, that's the piece right there. So now we go back into here. What do we need to make? We need to make a T-slot, and we need to make this piece right here, which is, you can't see exactly what this is because there's no depth, but this is going to be a 1/4-inch plate with a hole in it. Let's just make it, let's make it an 1/8-inch plate. That's a little more realistic. with a hole in it. Let's figure out exactly where that hole is. That hole is a 1/4 inch from the edge, and the plate looks like 1 by 0.5, I want to say. Yeah, 1 inch and, oh, 0.75. Okay, yeah, of course, because it matches this piece right here. Okay. Yeah, so let's make this plate. This plate's going to be really easy. So we go back into any of these, we click File, New, Part, and yeah, so let's do this. So this is just going to be a rectangle. It's 1 by 0.75, so let's make this 0.75, and let's make this 1, and that should do it. And let's extrude it. We said it's an 1/8 inch thick, so let's extrude it 0.125. That's an 1/8. Oh, I clicked escape by accident. We got to extrude it again. 0.125, and click the check mark. All right, there we go. And so now we just have to draw that circle. So let's sketch. We're going to choose this face here to sketch. We're going to do a circle, and we're just going to draw a circle. So we know the radius of the circle has to be. I said it was a. I didn't even measure the radius in AutoCAD. Let's go and measure the radius here. Radius. All right, so it's okay. So it's an 1/8 inch radius. So let's go back into SolidWorks. Click this again. We're still in sketch mode, so you can still edit everything. The radius is an 1/8. So there we go. And now let's make sure that we locate it properly. So let's use Smart Dimension. If it's centered, that means that since this is 0.75, this has to be 0.375. And then let's Smart Dimension this to this. I think we said it was a 1/4 inch from the edge, so boom, there we go. So that should do it. There you go. And then we're basically going to use this and make an extruded cut, and that's how you make a hole in a member, just like that. Easy, super easy. All right, so let's call this. Since this is a plate, it's a solid piece. You might want to call it something different, but I'm just going to do 1 by 0.75 by 0.125 plate with hole, something like that. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so so we made that, and now we have to make let's make our T-slot. So you know, same thing, new part. The T-slot you can make pretty intricate if you want, but I'm gonna make it pretty simple just to start. I'm gonna click this plane, and I'm gonna actually do a polyline, and I don't remember all of the dimensions exactly in that in the AutoCAD that I drew, but I'm gonna just make some dimensions up. I know that it looks approximately like this, and so I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna eventually adjust it, and it'll be fine. So right now I'm making the female part first. Just make sure that you make things, you know, perpendicular. That way you don't have to worry about adjusting other things. So yeah, so this yeah, we could go measure it in AutoCAD, but I'm honestly just going to make it up. So we know this has to match the exterior dimension of our big 1 by 1 piece, so this has to be 1. This is going to be, I'm going to say 0.75, and you got to make sure the other side matches as well. And then each of these is going to be 0.375. Just, you know, putting some numbers together here, making sure everything's perpendicular. You notice, by the way, that this whole thing moves when I put in 0.375, which means that if I go here again, it's adjusted, which means that I'm going to have to adjust things through this guy, which I'm going to make 0.5. So, yeah, now everything else adjusted, so it's, yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's a little difficult to actually do some of this stuff, and the way that you have to do it is basically by fixing some points. So I just made this 0.375, and I'm going to take this point right here, and I'm going to fix it. That way this thing can't move anymore. And then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make this, oh, that's already 0.5, great. And so this guy is going to be 0.375, and did that work? Nope, it didn't work. All right, let's make, let's do 0.375. This is 0.375 and this is 0.5. All right, so let's fix this point here too. That way this whole thing can't move. and this is 0.5, and now I got to move this. So now the only thing that can actually move here, well, I guess this 0.5 can move too, so let's fix that as well. So now if we click this, the only thing that should be able to move is, yeah, that should have worked. So let's see, this is 0.375, this is 0.5, and now this is 0.375. So this should be 1. Exactly, this is perfect. So let's fix this outside stuff just to make sure that nothing moves unexpectedly. And now this I'm going to make a quarter, and I'm going to make this a quarter as well. And I'm going to fix these points at the end to make sure they don't move. And I'm basically just going to do that for all of this stuff. So this point right here, this is fixed, but I'm actually going to get rid of this fixity. I'm going to delete this fixity so that I can have this thing move in this direction. I'm going to put this as 0.25. And that didn't work because this guy up here is fixed. So, you know, you start to get a sense for how to make everything work. So I think we adjusted everything such that this stuff can finally move. I think we said this is going to be, it's also going to be a quarter. There we go. So let's see. This is an eighth, and this is also an eighth, and I think that's everything. So that should do it. Let's just double check some of these other dimensions. 0.75. This is 1. This is yeah. This looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to exit the sketch. You know, so it's worth noting that even after you're done, you can always go back into the sketch and edit it. You know, you can right click here and then do the little pencil thing that says edit sketch and go back in. Super easy. But I think we're done with this. So the way that I'm going to make these slots is I'm basically just going to take this sketch and I'm going to extrude it. And that's it. I just have to select one line of the sketch. As I mentioned before, go to Features, Extrude Boss Base, and I know that this is going to be 1 inch deep. The reason I know that is because I know that this plane right here has to be 1 by 1 in order for it to match up exactly with the outside, the exterior dimensions of our the 1 by 1 by 34 pieces this is going to be attached to. If you want, you can make a little lip on this guy. The way that you would do that is basically sketch something here and then basically just boss extrude it by however long you want the lip to be. Super easy. In fact, I'll just do it now. I'm not going to keep it, but I'll do it now just so you see. So yeah, just do this, and let's say we want the lip to match the you know, the interior dimension. That means we're going to have to make this 0.1. You know, we'll make this 0.1 as well. 0.1. We'll make this 0.1. 0.1, and we'll make this 0.1. And there you go. That should do it. And we'll basically take this sketch, which is already selected, and we'll just extrude it by let's make it like a 1/4 inch. That's probably more than we would actually have it, but there you go. If you want to make like fillets on this guy, you can always click the little fillet tab, and this will show you the radius of the fillet. You can do all sorts of different dimensions here, yeah, basically, let me figure out. Yeah, I think this is, yep, just like that. So basically, you go to fillet, and you click this dimension right here, and then you just click the little check mark, and that'll do it. So you can fillet all sorts of stuff. Usually I don't go to that level of detail because there's not a whole lot of point in showing all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I said I'm not going to keep this, so basically I'll just go here and I'll just delete everything out. I'll delete this fillet as well, and I'll delete this last boss extrude, and I'll delete this sketch too. And then we're basically back to normal. If you want to add like a little backdrop to these guys, it's pretty easy. You just have to make a little sketch the size of like this little slotted area and then extrude that by however long you want it. Pretty easy. I'm not going to go to that level of detail for this tutorial, but with all the stuff that you learn here, it should be pretty straightforward how to do that. So this is the female T-slot. The way you know which is which, just really quick, is the male goes into the female So the female has like an opening and the male has like a little extrusion. So yeah, so this is a female T-slot. Usually I put like 1 by 1 or something like that, in case you have different sizes, but since we're only working with one size, I'm just gonna do this. This will be fine. So yeah, so now I gotta make the next T-slot, so let's do that. We'll make the same sketch. We'll do the same thing. Yeah, so yeah, let's do it this way. Something like that. Looks something like that. Yeah, so now let's start to dimension this stuff. Let's make this 1. Boy, that made a big change. Let's move a lot of this stuff over to make sure that when we adjust this dimension, it's not that drastic. So you see, pretty easy to drag this stuff. It doesn't all have to snap exactly. Let's put this down. Yeah, that should make more sense. Okay, so let's make this 1 now. All right, that still is pretty drastic, but that's okay. So, oop, my bad. You can always use Control Z, by the way, when you're in a sketch, but I would not recommend doing Control Z when you're outside of a sketch. It sometimes messes up what you're doing. So this is 1, which is great. So let's fix these 2 points right here. And then this is going to be a quarter, 0.25. As you can see, some of this stuff gets kind of screwed up, but as long as you keep it consistent, you know, you can usually recover pretty well. Fix these 2 points as well. And now this right here is going to be 0.375, I believe, to match what we had on the other one. And this will also be 0.375. And then these will be a quarter as well. And this guy is almost a quarter, but not quite. And then these will be, let's see. Let's actually take a look at the other piece to make sure we're matching. So this, it'll be quarter, and this will be, I think, that looks like 1/8. So if you want, you can measure it, but I'm gonna assume that that's what it's gonna be. And we'll make let's fix some of these points here to make sure that you know, we don't move around stuff we don't mean to move around. And let's 0.125 is 1/8, and then these are also a quarter. Oh, see, you got to make sure that you fix some of this stuff. Yeah, I think that'll do. 0.25, and I think that should be it. I want to say this is it. Yeah, it's just 375, 375. Yeah, it looks a little strange, but I think that's correct. I think that's correct. Let's take a look at this really quick. Well, we'll find out when we actually put them together. So, all right, that's it for this. So we'll load it back in, and then we'll basically extrude this the same way we've extruded everything else. We're going to make this 1 inch, same as always, and that's it. So, yeah, this is the male T-slot. So, male T-slot. And then that's it. I think we've got almost all of our pieces now. I think the only thing that we're missing, going back to AutoCAD here, the only thing we're missing, I think, is this footing that I made. So this footing, let's see, how long is this? This footing is 20 inches long, so that should be an easy piece to make. So let's jump in here, make a new piece, part, and yeah, we've done this before a couple times now. So make your little rectangle. This is going to be 1 by 1 as well. All right, and we'll extrude it 20 inches, and we'll give it the same exterior. We'll give it the same thickness as all the other ones. I would definitely recommend, by the way, you know, making sure that you do give members thicknesses. You know, sometimes it's tempting to just keep them solid, but you have to realize that as a designer, right, you have to eventually give this to somebody to make, right? You're not always going to be the person making it, and if they, you know, use a solid piece instead of a, you know, instead of a hollow piece, you're going to be like, oh, what, what's the, how did you screw that up? But the real person who screwed it up was you, because all they were doing was reading your drawing. So there you go. So let's go back. We'll do the extruded cut, and boom, super easy. We'll save this as 1 by 1 by 0.1 by 20, and that'll do that. So now I think we're almost ready to assemble everything. The only thing that's missing, there are a couple things that are missing, but one thing, I'm going to jump back to AutoCAD really quick. One thing that we want to capture is this hole, right? This hole is going to go through not just this plate, but also this piece over here. So let's take a look at the whole model and see how it overlaps. So this hole, it looks like it's about 1/4 inch down from the center here, right? Yeah. So let's take this piece that we already made, and let's make one version with a hole and one version without. So let's see, do we already have it open? Yes, we do. Okay, so this guy right here. So what we can do is we can do a file save as on another piece. We can say like with hole, right? By the way, if this piece is already loaded in your drawing and you do a save as, it'll give you a couple other options to do save as. So it gets a little annoying because it's not always clear which you're going to do. So I find it easier to just do all of this work early. All right, so we know that this guy has a radius. It's 1/4 inch diameter, so it's got a radius of 0.125, and we know that it's 1/4 inch from the edge. So let's do that. 1/4 inch from the edge, 0.25, just like that. And let's extrude this. Let's make an extruded cut. So you'll see right here, it'll go right through both faces, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And there you go. That's this piece right here. So yeah, I think we're ready to start making some of these pieces. So finally, for the first time, we'll go to File, New, and we'll click Assembly. And it'll load an assembly. And the first thing that you do is insert these components. Now, if you have open components, it'll already put them in, which is great. Let's do a male T-slot. Let's do a female T-slot. As you can see, it already got rid of it. The way that you get it back is by clicking Insert Components up here. Now let's do a female T-slot. Let's do a male T-slot. Let's do 1 by 1 by 34. Let's do the top piece, which has a plate on it, and it has a 1 by 4 with no hole. Which is not open right now, so we'll have to go find it. That's this guy right here. And then we'll have 2 of the other pieces, the diagonal ones. So we'll do one of those, and we'll do one of these. All right, so that's that. So these are all the components, I believe, that we need to make this piece right here, this guy. So let's start putting it together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align the T-slot. So if you take this, you can actually kind of usually you can drag these around. It depends on which one you inserted first. So if I inserted this one first, which means that I can drag around everything else, really stupid in my opinion, but that's the way that it works. So yeah, so this guy you can move around. The way that you can actually, let's see, you can click these guys. I'm pretty sure there's functions here for rotating things around and making, yeah. So if you want to move this, you can drag it, but you can also click Move Component and click this and then move it around. And you can also rotate it as well, which is helpful sometimes. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit, and then I'm going to move it over here. All right, so the way that you add things to each other to make sure that they stick together is with the Mate tool, which is under Assembly. It's right here. This will be your friend. You'll use this all the time in your assemblies. So let's mate this with this. The way that I want to do that is first by I'm gonna make this line stick to this line, and I'm gonna make this line stick to this line, and that should do it. That should do it. So let's mate this with this. You'll notice that the piece that moved was this guy, not this guy, because this guy doesn't move. And then let's mate this with this right here. Be careful not to click this point. Make sure you click line to line to make sure that you understand exactly what's going on. So now this guy should be mated. You'll notice I can't move this thing because this guy's fixed. But because I can't move this, I know that this is definitely mated to this. So there you go. So that's the first one. So now let's take this and let's put this on the other side. Be careful about rotation. I've noticed sometimes that if you try to mate this to this, it'll mate this upside down. So if you rotate it just a little bit such that it's, facing the right direction, something like that, this is going to paste to here. That goes a long way. So yeah, so let's mate this really quick. Mate with this right here, this line. Perfect. And so you can see this rotates. And then let's mate this line with this right here, and that should do it. That should do it. Right. So let's mate the rest of the stuff together. Should be pretty easy. We'll mate this to this. One thing that you might start to see ahead of time is that this guy is going to need to mate to this, but it's going to need to be a certain distance from the end, right? Which might prove to be a little challenging. The way that we're going to do that is it's hard for this. You can't really. It's hard for it to measure like distances. It's much easier to snap to stuff. And the way that I typically do it is I'll take this and I'll actually open it up and I'll draw something that'll help me position. Because as soon as I draw something here, it'll pop up in the assembly. So I'll do a little sketch. I know this has got to be a 1/2 inch from the edge. So I'll just sketch something like this, and I'll take this and I'll say this is a 1/2 inch long, just like that. And that's exactly what it is. And I'll go back to my assembly and it'll say, you've made changes. Model contained with the assembly has changed. Always rebuild, even if you've screwed up, because if you don't rebuild it, you'll get seriously behind on your stuff, and then you'll rebuild and stuff will happen that you weren't expecting, and you'll be like, what do I do? So yeah, it's always better to click rebuild and then deal with it. Yeah, so that's the first one right there. And then what we can do is, see, this guy will be able to rotate a little bit. What we can do is we can take this and we can mate this with this plane. And then all we have to do is mate this line with this point right here, and that should do it. So let's do that right there. Boom, just like that. And so now we've got this. That's exactly the location we want. And, as always, you can always take this and hide it in view, right? To make it so that your model's a little cleaner. That's fine. By the way, it's worth noting on the left here, you can see all of the pieces that you've loaded in, and you can delete them out, and you can do all sorts of stuff. So for example, this piece right here, right? You can click this right here, and you can take a look at everything in here. One thing super annoying is when you click this doesn't get highlighted anymore. So when I click this, it's highlighted, and you're like, great, I know which piece I'm on. And then when you click this, well, that time it stayed. Never mind. I don't know. But just, make sure you know which piece is open. I try to keep every piece closed permanently unless I'm actually editing it, just to make things cleaner. But yeah, so you can see the sketch that I drew here, and you can unhide it here. You can unhide it literally in camera, so to speak. So yeah. So let's take this and let's make this attached to this. Now, this piece is 0.75 by 0.75, and this piece is 1 by 1. So if I want this to actually be centered underneath here, if I actually want this to be centered, it's going to be a little bit annoying. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to draw on here, and that's how I'm going to help mate this guy, because it'll help me locate. So I'll open this up, and I'll just draw on here. So if we're centered, that means that I'm I gotta be how far is this? Is 34 inches, so I gotta be 17 inches, right? And then if I want the actual if I want to really get this right, I can do a couple things. I can draw another line out here. I can do this, and then I can make sure that this is exactly the distance between the edges. If this is 1 inch and the other one's 0.75, that means that the difference in those diameters is not diameters. The distance in those dimensions is 1/4, and so if it's centered, I have an 1/8 on each side. So I'm going to make this an 1/8. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually sketch this out. I'm literally going to make a rectangle, and I'm going to just make sure that this guy's centered on. I'm going to make sure this is centered on. Let's see if the easiest way to do this. This might be a little challenging. Yeah, it's a little challenging. So yeah, maybe the rectangle is not the best idea. So actually, I'm going to exit the sketch. Wait, they're part of the same sketch, I believe. So actually, I'm just going to delete this part. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm just gonna draw a line to the edge of what I know the piece is going to be. If it's 0.75 and this is literally the center, then this is going to be 0.375. And if you really want to, you can draw this. Let's get this perpendicular. Yeah, you can draw this as 0.75, and now you're starting to see what the actual piece is going to look like. But yeah, this is good enough for sure. So yeah, so let's go back to our assembly, and as you see, same deal. It's changed. Not a big deal. So now we've got a little bit of a problem. No, we don't. No, we're fine. So yeah, we do have a little problem. So the problem here is that if we were, well, let's make this, and I'll show you what the problem is. You might be able to see it already, but afterwards you'll definitely be able to see it. So one thing that I'm going to do to mate these nicely first is I'm going to mate this whole surface here to the other whole surface. This guy right here. That'll be good as a starting point. Because this will be on here. It doesn't look like it's on here, but then you rotate it and you're like, oh yeah, it is. So then I'm going to mate this line right here to this line, and you're starting to see how exactly this is going to work. And then I'm going to mate this line to the other line, and you'll be like, wow, simple as that. And there you go. So now that's perfectly centered. So here's what the problem is right now. Here's what the problem is. Yeah, never mind. There's no problem. I thought that these guys would be in the wrong orientation. If these were like faced up or something like that, but they're actually okay. So let's do the last bit here, which is this. You'll notice, by the way, that when we did this, we forgot to make an extruded cut and make this hollow. Let's do that. Let's do that. So yeah, as you remember, this is a historically challenging. It's probably the most challenging piece that we did, but this should still be pretty easy to make an extrusion, because it's the exact same thing as before. You already have all the planes made. So yeah, we're just going to do this the same way that we've always done it. 0.1, and we'll do these two because this one looks like it's about to disappear on us. And yeah, you can see for like a 1/2 inch piece, 0.1 is a pretty big thickness. 0.1. You've lost. You've got a healthy percentage of your actual bar here. So yeah, let's do a little extruded cut here. Looks like it's not going in the right direction. And the reason, let's see, why is it not going in the right direction? It's not going in the right direction because I think okay, it's not going in the right direction because this plane right here is not perpendicular to this line because of the way that we cut it. So let's take the sketch and we'll delete it. You'll note, by the way, that I clicked one part of the sketch and the entire thing deleted. If you want to delete only a part of the sketch, you have to go in and actually edit the sketch. so let's trace. Yeah, so this will be a little challenging to actually extrude. The way that you can do it is you can take some of this and undo it really quick. If I delete this, what happens? Yeah, something like that. And then I can extrude it, and then I can go and cut it again. That would probably be the easiest thing. So yeah, you can see that, you know, the order of how you do things actually does matter. So, you know, just be mindful as you're going about this, of what you're doing, and you know, you'll do this a lot. This will take a while. You know, we're making a really simple model, but imagine making like a big bridge. Towards the end here, I'll show you what the actual bridge from 2018 looked like. And I can tell you it took a very long time. So yeah, now this should go perfect. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly the way we want it. All right, perfect. So now we got to cut this again. I'm gonna make these little planes. I'm gonna make these planes appear, and we're gonna do this. It's gonna be fine. So we'll take this and we'll do an extruded cut, and we'll cut, you know, in the right direction. And you know, there we go. Simple as that. We're gonna take this plane and hide it, and then we're back to normal, as if nothing happened. So the only difference now is that we have this little cut, and yeah, just to make sure, that goes all the way through. And if you look on the other side, it also goes all the way through. So there you go. All right, so let's save this, and then we'll go back to our assembly, and it'll say the same thing. Something's changed. That's fine, and you'll notice right away that they're, you know, now they show an opening. All right, so let's grab this guy, and let's start to put everything together. So I'm going to rotate this just a little bit, scratch just a little bit. I'm going to rotate it a lot, just to make sure that it's in the right orientation. That's pretty close. And then if I've actually drawn this correctly, I only have to mate this to this, and that should do it. But one thing that's worth noting is that this guy and this guy, I'm going to have to, you know, this is a 1/2 inch, this is a 0.75, so I'm going to have to do the same thing that I did on this, which is sketch on this. So I'm going to open this up again. I'm going to unhide this just to make sure that I've got, you know, I'm in the right spot. And that means that I got a sketch on over here on this plane right here. So let's do that really quick. So all we have to do is basically just be out 0.125, and I think that's all we're gonna need. I think I'll make an extra line just in case. Yeah, it doesn't matter how long that one is. All right, so that should do it. So let's jump back in to the assembly. Yes, things have changed. It's fine. And yeah, so we're right back here, and let's mate this whole surface just right here, and then we'll mate this line to this line right here, and then yeah. So as it turns out, that was probably unnecessary. But we'll do these two, and then that should do it. And let's take a look up here, and look at that. That's gorgeous. That's great. That worked out perfectly, right? Look, yeah. So that's how you know that you did it right. All right, so we're gonna have to do the same thing with the other one right here, and then we'll be done with our first assembled piece. All right, so let's rotate this around. Oh, that was pretty simple. And so yeah, so we're gonna have to draw the same thing on the other side of this. Let's go back into it. It's gonna be on this plane now. Yeah, so this down here, and we're gonna make this. We're gonna make that just like that. And just to prove that I don't actually need to make the other line, I'm gonna go back in here and make it work. Yes, things have changed just fine. So we're gonna make this. Oh, not insert component. I'm gonna make this to this guy right here, and then basically what we have to do is we just have to, let's see, yeah, I'm gonna make this to this, and then I'm just gonna make this point to this point right here, and that should do it. So yeah, there you go. That's proof that you didn't need to do the extra line. And right there, we are, look at that, centered, perfect. All right, so this looks great. So this is our first part. This is finished. There's nothing more. And yeah, so let's save this. So let's, yeah, so you can see it's going to tell you that other things have changed. The only reason that you have to save these two is because I didn't save them when I made the changes here. That's fine. So save all, and then let's call this truss 1. Let's just call it truss 1. And yeah, there's nothing here because it's an assembly file. It's a different file type than a part file type. And that's fine. So save, and there you go. So we're almost done here. All right, so now that we've finished this first assembly, let's make a new assembly. Let's make a second assembly. I'm gonna, yeah, the next one is pretty much the same as this one. It's almost exactly the same. If you want to just see how similar it is, we can do a save as on this one and try and modify it. So let's call this truss 2. All right, so what's going to be different? So this plate's not going to be here, so I'll delete this plate out. This piece is going to have a hole in it, so I got to swap this for another piece, so let me delete this out. These guys are now free to move because they're no longer mated to this. Just be careful of that. You can keep them in place, by the way, and then mate them later. I find that's often the best thing to do. So let's insert that other piece. Let's insert that piece with no hole, or rather with a hole. This one. So yeah, so we just inserted it. We're going to rotate it around, just like that's fine, and then we're going to mate it. So let's just do that. Yeah, so let's make that there, just so I can make sure I'm seeing this properly. I'm gonna rotate this so I can click this line. I'm gonna mate that line to this line, and then there you go. That's the shortcut way. Let's just make sure that this guy doesn't move though. So let's mate this line. Let's mate this line to this surface, and let's mate this line to this surface, or rather that line. And now the only thing that can move is this guy can still slide back and forth. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to try to mate the center of each of these lines. So the center of this line with the center of this line, if I can find it. There it is. There you go. So actually, all that stuff that I drew on that other piece was unnecessary. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Sometimes, you know, doing a little bit of extra thinking before you actually do stuff can save you a little bit of time. So let's yeah, let's keep going here. There we go. And that should be it. And look at that, there's truss 2 right there. Took like no time at all. Just, you know, be careful when you're doing this. Sometimes the orientation of the pieces will matter, and you'll note that when you actually assemble assemblies, you'll be like, oh, this doesn't fit, and you'll hopefully see why right away. So let's start. Let's make our footing. Let's make our footing. That's the last thing that we need to make. There's 2 different kinds of footings. If we look back in the AutoCAD, we've got a footing that has female T-slots, and we've got a footing that has male T-slots. So that's going to be the only difference there. And these trusses are the same. This one's the same as this one, and this one's the same as this one. So that's fine. So let's yeah, let's make a new assembly, because I think we already made every part that we need to make. And yeah, let's insert some stuff. So let's do the female T-slot one. We're going to need 2 female T-slots. And we're gonna need that 1x1x20, and there we go. So let's just rotate this so it matches the slots a little bit. There we go. And yeah, so let's just mate this slot. We know this slot's going to be mated to the top, to the top of this piece, and then we're going to have to measure for the other one. So let's do this right here, and that yeah, we're almost done. The only thing is that this guy rotates a little bit. I want to say you can see when these guys highlighted, and when you rotate around, you're like, oh, that's not quite right. So mate this, and that should do it. Usually you only have to mate two different things at once, but sometimes you can constrain, with more mates. It doesn't really matter. So let's go to AutoCAD and let's measure the distance between here and here. I'll just measure the distance from the top. That's at 9 inches. So let's yeah, so let's go into our 1 by 1 by 20 and let's draw 9 inches into here. So yeah, we gotta choose this plane and then draw this, and then we're gonna set the distance to 9 inches. And there you go. So now we're gonna go back into our new assembly, and it's gonna say stuff has changed, and we know that's fine. And look at that, it drew it from the wrong direction. So the way that we're gonna get around that is we're gonna unmate this, and we're just gonna flip it around. So yeah, let's just do that. So let's open up the T slot here. This one has no mates. This one's got mates. If you can open these up and you can highlight these. I'm just going to do a shift click to highlight all of them and then delete them all. And then we can move this and rotate it around, and we'll be fine. So yeah, let's see. What's the easiest way to make this look about right? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that, and then we'll rotate these around. And that one doesn't move. I think that one doesn't move because that's the first one that I dropped in here. Yeah, so that's annoying, but it'll be fine. So yeah, let's put this one at the bottom. Yeah, so let's mate this surface with this surface, and then let's mate this surface with this surface, and then yeah, so the way that I measured it was let's mate this with just this point. That should work. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to rotate this. So you can rotate stuff that's already assembled. That's fine. Yeah, we'll do that, and we'll move this around like this, and there we go. That's fine. So now we're going to mate the top here. I'm just going to make this line right up here, just like that. And then we're going to mate this line with this line, and there we go. We should be done with our footing. All right, sweet. So let's save this. Let's call this footing 1. It says that there's other stuff that didn't save. That's fine. We already know how to deal with that. Footing 1. All right, sounds good. Let's make footing 2, and then we'll put everything together, and we should be done. So yeah, we're gonna need a 1 by 1 by 20, and we're gonna need 2 male T slots. Male T slot, and we're gonna need another one. All right, so that should do it right there. So let's rotate these around. Yeah, that'll be fine. All right, so let's yeah, let's do that. Just like that. We'll mate this with this right here. And yeah, we'll mate these dots right here. That'll be fine. Mate this with the edge. And that should do it. That should do it. So let's mate this with this, and we'll be done. You can see it jumped it. Sometimes that's because it's just figuring out where exactly it's going to be in the plane. It's hard to tell the depth here because when you rotate things around, the visuals change. So that should be good. So this is footing 2, and we should be good. We should be ready to build our bridge. So let's make a new assembly. An assembly of assemblies is just an assembly. It's fine. And this will be our bridge. So we can insert assemblies here. We can insert footing 1. We can insert footing 2. We can insert truss 1 and truss 2. Looks like I've only got truss 2 open because I did a save as. We know we're going to need 2 of each. So yeah, let's just put them in. Insert, browse. We're going to find truss 1 right there. And there we go. Insert components, browse, truss 1, and that should be all the pieces we need. So let's just make it look exactly like the AutoCAD. So I'm gonna first, this is the first thing I move, so everything else has to move away. Put this over here. This is the truss 1 is the top truss. So let's rotate this around. So when you click this point, sometimes the rotation kind of freezes. It's a little annoying. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'm just going to mate these slots together. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to mate this edge right here. I'm going to mate that edge with this edge. And yeah, we're going to do a couple more and then we should be set. So that, I believe that's this guy, yeah. You can see when it's starting to rotate around and do like funky movements that it's partially mated but not fully restrained. So we did that, and then I'll do this one, and that should do it, because that'll form a plane, and then they'll be good. All right. So there we go. Look at that. We're almost done. So let's tag this other piece right here, and then we're almost done. So we'll do the exact same thing as before. We'll do these two first, because why not? And we got to find it. And then yeah, up here. Yeah, it looks like you can drag it freely, but not always. Or rather, it looks like it, but that's not actually the case. All right, so we got those two, and now we're really flying through this. So let's take this and we'll rotate this around a little bit, just like that's fine. And we'll mate these guys up. Looks like we've got our first error here. Take a look. The orientation's no good, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically go into here. I'm going to open up. I opened the part. That's not what I wanted to open. I wanted to open the footing. I think this is footing 2. Right. So yeah. So we got the wrong orientation. So the way that we're going to do that is we're basically just we're gonna remove the mates here, and we're just going to rotate them. Rotate these pieces around, and it'll be fine. So yeah, let's do that for both these slots. There we go. And something will move. There we go. Okay. So we'll take this and we'll rotate this just a little bit. And then we will we'll just mate this just like that. Easy does it. And yeah, this should move too, right? Yeah, there we go. So we'll rotate this around. We'll do the same thing. Mate this with this. That looks great. We'll mate this with the plane here. And then we'll just tag this edge right here, this little dot. We'll mate that with this, and that should do it. All right, we'll save this, and then we'll load. We'll take a look at our big assembly now, and it'll say things have changed. That's fine. Things changed. Look at that. The orientation flipped, and now we're good. All right. So you'll see there that I just I clicked the I had to click the arrow twice for mates. That's just the way that it is. Not exactly sure how that happened, but that's the way it is. Anyway, you can mate all this stuff together, but realistically, you only have to mate any of these because these are rigid pieces. So let's just do this. We'll just do this with a T-slot, and you'll see that everything will line up. If you did it properly, everything will line up. So there we go. Look at that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you know that it's right. So yeah, we'll put in the last one and then we'll be done. And just like that, we're done. Look at that. So we'll save this as bridge, and that's it. So thank you guys for watching this whole thing. I have no idea how long it is, but I'm guessing it's over an hour. And yeah, now you should be able to make the whole steel bridge. Thanks very much. Right, so now that we're done with this, I just want to show you guys a couple things that I know you're going to see eventually because you'll make like little mistakes here and there. So the first one is mating errors. So if you used a line to make a mate and then you take the line and you delete it, you'll get a little thing here. Yeah, this thing. It makes a really annoying sound, and basically suddenly all these truss elements here have rebuild errors, okay? So the thing is, you don't want those rebuild errors at all. And the reason that you get these rebuild errors is, as I said, because you deleted something that it was using, to find its current position. So if you open this up, you'll start to see that some of this stuff has errors. These ones have errors. This has mate errors. So the way you resolve this is just delete the mate that was using that, and that's how you do it. So that was it. That was all that it took. Um, the reason that a bunch of them showed up is because a bunch of them were using this piece. But yeah, that sort of stuff is kind of annoying, and you'll see that you might be able to start to move some of this stuff. Um, as a result of that, not in this case, but some of them you will, and it'll be really annoying. So yeah, I just brought this whole thing back. And yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much all of the commands that I ever used. Every so often, the measuring tool and things like that are helpful. When you are, the designer, you want to basically take these pieces and show somebody else how to make them. The way that you can do that is by making a drawing. So that's something we haven't talked about yet. So let's open this drawing. Make a new drawing. It doesn't matter what the title block is, right? Who cares? That's not the important part. If this was for a job, it might be important, but not for us. So let's take the diagonal, which is going to be the hardest one to detail. And yeah, so you can show all this stuff right here. You can show a bunch of different details and things like that. But I think this one right here is the most important one. So the way that you're going to do this is you're going to dimension everything out so that people know exactly how to cut things. So you'll show the angle, you'll show the lengths and things like that. Just make sure you add all the dimensions such that somebody knows exactly how long every single bit of this is. All right, that's what's most important. Yeah, they'll be able to tell that this is a ½ inch because you'll do this, right? That shows that this is a ½ inch. And then, yeah, just make sure you show all the dimensions, all things like that, so that whoever's making this literally can't make a mistake because of your drawing. And they don't have to ask you for questions. They can literally just do it. So yeah, that's all the dimensions for this guy. And then this is a useless view. So I think we can probably delete this view. Yeah, okay. So there you go. There's a drawing. And it'll give you this really annoying long title, but it'll give you the title of the piece. So that's helpful when you print them out. So that's that for the drawing. We'll save this. Well, that's just drawing. All right. Yeah, so let me just show you what I was able to make in 2018 just using the commands that I showed you. And yeah, you'll start to realize that a lot of this is a lot of, planning your dimensions ahead, but the commands themselves are not that complicated. So yeah, let me open up this. So yeah, I made our 2018 bridge out of all of these pieces right here. Every single one of them I used, so you can tell that this takes a really long time. But the final result is usually really great. Give me a little opening error. Not exactly sure what's going on there, but hopefully it'll resolve itself. So yeah. Oh, okay, that's why. So yeah, I already have a piece called bridge, which is this one that I called bridge. That's why. All right, so yeah, we'll save everything. That's fine, and then we'll open it. It'll be all good. All right. So yeah, there's apparently there's 1,300 something pieces in this. So yeah, you can tell why it took forever. But yeah, this is it right here. And yeah, the nice thing about SolidWorks, and this is the ultimate reason why we use SolidWorks, is because everything here is in exactly the right place. All the pieces, you can measure everything. You can make the entire bridge without consulting the designer if you have this model. So yeah, everything's here. It's all exactly as it should. I even detailed the connections and things like that. And so yeah, you can tell, you know, it takes a while to do this. It takes a while to do this. Um, but ultimately it's very rewarding. Um, and the nice thing is you don't have to always calculate things again, right? You only have to do it once because there's a record of it. This is the drawing. This is the model. And anyone can open this up and measure things, figure out distances, you know, click this part and say, all right, I'm going to open this part and figure out how long it is, right? So there you go. You know, here it is right here. You can figure out how long it is. So that's it for SolidWorks. And yeah, to more first place bridges. See you guys.